Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Michiana Unsolved. I'm so excited to have Detective Craig Whitfield here with us. I really kind of rearranged your schedule this week, so I appreciate you taking the time.
That's okay. Glad to be here.
For those who maybe this is their first time seeing you, you worked as an officer for several years, and then you were supposed to retire. And we were just talking about this. Police have a hard time retiring, don't you? You retire and then get another job and then retire and get another job again.
We ease out slowly. Yeah, right. So part-time right now.
You were saying, though, you have such a huge passion for working cold cases like these. And so it really is nice to be able to kind of put a face behind all the investigating that goes on, especially at South Bend PD.
Yeah, I do have a passion for this. I was a homicide investigator at Mishawaka Police Department for a number of years. With the Special Crimes Unit, the prosecutor's office for a year or two, and so it is a passion, and it doesn't go away with retirement.
No, as we can see here.
Yeah.
So we have this case. If you're watching 16 Morning News now, we highlighted a little bit. And what I love about having you on is I'm able to kind of ask you questions that I have, because when we do a Michiana Unsolved story that airs on TV, we are allotted about a minute and a half, right? We got to use our time very wisely. But I know when we're watching it, there are questions that people have, and hopefully you can answer some of them. I know that it's always like a fine line because your investigation is still very active.
Right.
But this is the murder of Delia Lerma, and this story actually just hit me because it's about a woman who in 2007, December 4th, 2007, she's 33 years old. She left her home to go to what? The grocery store.
Yeah, it's something that people do every day in this community, and she never returned home.
And so she went, to my understanding, and I want to show some pictures of her here. She went to go to Rosales to get some ingredients because she was making tamales. And what I understand is this was kind of her thing. Like, this was what she loved to make. It was a family staple. So if you look at the date again, December 4th, we are smack dab in the holiday season, right? We are just 20 days away from Christmas Eve and everything that goes along with that. And so I want to show a map. Hold on, let me take this down. I want to show a map because what I found interesting about this case. So December 4th, 2007, Delia Lerma left her residence at 713 South Bendick Street in South Bend, correct? That's the address?
Correct. That's correct.
And we can see it here. It was, to my understanding, around 2 in the afternoon.
Yes.
And as we were talking, she decided to go to the supermarket. And now 2 in the afternoon is not late by any means.
No.
So what I find interesting is here. We plotted this out to really understand where she was going. So we're talking what, like 3 blocks?
Yeah, it's literally a 1-minute drive.
Okay.
Less than a mile.
So she's going there, and I was actually able to find some old reporting that we did from 2007. And in that piece, the reporter said her family confirmed a clerk did see her at Rosales. So is that kind of following your investigation that she made it to that grocery store?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so she made it to that grocery store, but the problem is she never made it home. And before we kind of show you where her vehicle was found, I want you to kind of recap, if you don't mind. So she makes it to Rosales. She left her home at 2. Again, you can see 1-minute drive. We know the clerk remember seeing her, and then what happened?
She left the store, and a lot of that, though, is a mystery at that point. She was supposed to go to visit a friend, but she never returned home. So again, some of this stuff is currently being investigated and reinvestigated, but we're trying to track her steps along the way from Rosales until her body was found 4 days later.
And before we get there, it's to my understanding that, again, from some old reporting that I saw, and also notes from Lieutenant Kayla Miller with Michiana Crime Stoppers, that it was around 7:45 p.m. that night that she went to the store that her family called in and a missing person report was filed by her husband.
That's correct.
And what breaks my heart is that she has kids. As I mentioned, she's a mom of 4.
Yes.
And we're so close to the holidays, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. It's 2 p.m. Where did mom go?
Right. Yeah. So at 7:45, the police were contacted. South Bend PD went out and took a report and began the investigation on the missing person side of it. Put out a bulletin on the van and plate number and all, and trying to find the missing person at that point.
Now, when I used to work at the police department, you get missing persons reports and runaways all the time, right? And then in less than an hour, these individuals get found.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about when, as an officer and a detective, you kind of get the feeling something's different about this one.
Well, I think she left at 2:00. She was going to the store, stopping at a friend, and then coming home. And so by 7:45 p.m., I think it shows that something had changed along the way.
Right.
And so when it starts becoming nightfall and they haven't returned, I think that is what raised a lot of red flags at that point.
And then there also, though, is that kind of piece here, though, that she was going to a friend's, right? So
Correct.
That's what she said. So market, friends, home. So we know how it is to catch up with buddies, maybe you hang out and time goes by. So for me, I'm also thinking, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and say, how serious would I take this at that point, which is so hard because you don't know what's happening to your loved one while, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think if my husband Dave was out, I'd be like, oh, he's going to make it home.
Right.
But obviously there's something here that the family realized something's different.
Yeah, so they called. A lot of people will wait to call, but in this particular case, just hours later.
Yeah.
For about almost 5 hours later.
So then you said fast forward 4 days, right? And I want to show this because her car was found, right?
Yes.
And so she was known to drive this van. Is that what we're hearing?
Yes. She shared the van with her husband.
Okay.
And so she left in that van that day and to go to the store and return.
Okay. And she didn't.
And she didn't.
4 days later, did someone on the street obviously call? Was that what I was hearing, that it's like, oh, this van was kind of hanging out here and they just decided, hey, we don't know? Or what's
somebody recognized the van.
Okay.
And it's this case in 2007, it gained a lot of local attention.
Yeah.
And so in the morning on December 8th, about 9:30 a.m., South Bend PD received a call about this van and went and checked and found her inside.
So before we kind of go into details about her, I want to show this because this is really what got me curious. Mm-hmm. So we see the victim's home. You can see kind of in the center upper left corner. And we showed you where the Rosales supermarket is. We were talking about
Correct.
a minute away from her house. But then you see where the victim was found, the exact opposite direction of where she was.
Yes.
So in my head, I'm thinking, is her friend down there? Did she drive? And maybe you can't give me these details. Maybe you don't know. But did someone, what happened?
Yeah. So the Rosales is 1 minute from her house. It looks further than it really is. It's about 1.5 miles to where the van was found.
Okay.
So it's a 3-minute drive. So you call it a 4-minute drive from the store to where the van was found even.
Okay.
So it's in a neighborhood that she would frequent.
Okay.
And so it just makes the case more interesting.
Right. No, it really does. And as I kind of bring back, again, you can see this map here, you can get an idea. And I like that you put that in perspective, right? Because this does look dramatically different, like far away from the supermarket. But as you said, about 4 minutes, fine. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take you back to the scene here. You can see her van here, where it was found, and talk a little bit about what was found here because it wasn't just her van.
No, so she was found deceased inside the van. She'd been stabbed multiple times. Of course, the plows had been through there and plowed around the vehicle a little bit. So it gave us a little bit of perspective on how long the van maybe had been parked there. So she had been dead for a little while, likely a few days. So, so that began the investigation right there that day.
And again, what's so hard about this too is the date as well for me that just sits with me, right? Yeah. Like you have this mom with 4 kids going to the grocery store, seeing a friend, and then this happens. Yeah. So close to the holidays. Any time is horrific, but just adding in all these different factors. And like you said, you can tell the vehicle was there for a while because you can see the plows go around it, which as a detective is obvious to you, but I never even thought about that when I looked at this photo, right? But that does also give you an idea based on weather during that time of how long that vehicle was sitting there.
Yeah, the detectives that originally worked this case did a very good job on locking in the times and things like with regard to, how long the van had been parked there, the plow had gone through, what time did the plow go through. So they had a really good idea with the timeline on at least to narrow it down. And sometimes that's not an easy thing to do.
Absolutely. But I think now that we're looking at these photos, you can see underneath that van, there's no snow coverage, right? So you could
Correct.
tell pretty easily that, okay, this was sitting here before we got that most recent snow.
Yep. There's a storm roof through. Yep.
So to my understanding, she was found inside this van with multiple stab wounds.
Yes, that's correct.
I think we can all in 2024, because there is such a following of true crime and just shows that are at our fingertips these days. When I hear that someone's been stabbed multiple times, I kind of think, and I want to be respectful, right? We don't know who is doing this, but to get that up close and personal, I immediately think, was it somebody that she knew to allow somebody to get in her space like that?
Yeah. Typically speaking, you're going to be murdered by someone that you know.
Okay.
So in this particular case, a stabbing is more intimate type of murder because it's up close and personal versus being shot from a distance. This is you're touching the person, and so it makes it a much more intimate crime.
And I understand we're not talking about one time being stabbed. We're talking multiple times.
Correct.
And then you have to think about what's the MO here, right? Like it would, in your, opinion, and again, nothing is off the table, right? Like, very well that somebody would kill somebody for a watch, right? So things happen. But I guess I just look at this case of saying, what could this woman have had that would just be a random crime? Or in your case, is that completely off the table? Is a random crime here completely off the table?
I mean, based on what I know about the case and from talking to the other detectives, it's not a random crime.
Okay.
But my mind's open to the idea that we're looking at everything. So that opinion, I suppose, could change. But we filed the evidence.
Right. Going off of what you're seeing and your years of experience, there are just some things that at least are going to move you in a direction initially. To my understanding, friends and family have been questioned in this case. As we know today, no arrests have been made. And that's why we're coming on here, right? The hope is that somebody remembers something. 2007, not extremely long ago, less than 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And if you do know something, no questions asked. Michiana Crime Stoppers, you remain 100% anonymous, and you can do it by calling, just going on your computer. You can use the app, and you can stay on your phone. And again, the thing is, nobody knows what you're doing because everybody's on their phones these days. So I want to pick your brain. Where are you right now? Because what's so interesting about this is that you have gotten so much passion about this case, and this is just one of the many that you're working on. But this one has really kind of ignited something in you.
Yes. again, this is one of those cases where, it was Christmas time, 4 children, young mom, going to the grocery store like every other person in this community may do on a given day. So,
Right.
but just the way she died, I'm sure her children were, asking where's mom,
Right.
For 4 days. And so I think they deserve answers as does the rest of the community.
When you think about someone just sitting at home, right? Whoever's responsible for this, sitting at home, does that kind of fuel you more? You know, I guess when I would look at this case and I see this mom who just still has so much life to live, who has, as you mentioned, these kids and a husband and friends, right? And just the tradition of the tamales and the holidays.
Yeah.
Somebody is sitting at home right now responsible. I mean, does that just eat at you?
Yeah, so it's a lack of justice and a lack of closure, and I think this person so far has gone on with their life like nothing ever happened. So it's our job to try to change that and bring justice to the victim.
Yeah. And again, any information, no matter how big or how small.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Miller and I talk about this too. Maybe you talked to police those many years ago. Cool. Call again.
Yes.
Like, you're on this case now. How helpful is that for you if someone who's already talked to detectives calls up and say, hey, I already said to them, but here's what I know. I remember seeing the van here or whatever.
Yeah, we've talked to people before where they many years later they tell us additional facts that they didn't tell us the first time when they were interviewed, say 15, 20, or 30, even 30 years ago on these cases. So the re-interviews and having the second, third, or fourth conversation with people is very useful to what we do.
And I think what's important too about Michiana Crime Stoppers and submitting the anonymous tips, you still have to follow up on those, right? So it's not like you're just, if anyone's staying at home being like, well, I want to say something, but I'm worried that maybe this isn't remembered right. Or, you don't just take that and are like, okay, we're going for an arrest. That is just helping aid law enforcement in the right direction, or know to ask different questions or question different people.
Yeah, it may be a piece of the puzzle that we're working on. So, and it may be that missing piece that connects the scenario to what we think happened, but it may prove what did happen.
Yeah. Her family is still in the community right now, right?
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So obviously they're looking to you, and I don't just mean you, detective. I mean you, Michiana, to come forward and say something. So we have all these facts. Is there anything else you can share with us that we don't have, or is that kind of what we're allowed to release right now?
That's the basis of the facts that as we know it right now, short of delving further into the investigative process. But we're looking at the evidence again. I mean, in 2024, we have a lot of technical abilities that we did not have in 2007. Everything was sent in and tested back then, but we now have new ways of extracting DNA off of items that perhaps weren't tested that way back in 2007 and early 2008.
Yeah, the DNA has just really, and maybe I can talk to you a little bit about this and how much is changed. Even cases with very little possibility are now being solved because of this new DNA technology and these databases, right, that just continue to grow with DNA, that you're kind of getting hits on things that maybe you never thought you'd get a hit on.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, the DNA is there a lot of times, and the oldest case I believe that's been solved that way was a 1956 case.
Wow.
So it's an old case. So
absolutely. Yeah. And so is that just the DNA that gets put in this? How does that work? Do you put samples in a system and then it kind of runs it and finds?
Yeah, so you get the you examine or analyze the evidence, and then once you've done that, it extracts the DNA from the evidence, and then the evidence is put into a system called CODIS, which is a comprehensive DNA database, And if it's a good profile and the person's in this in CODIS, in that database, then it'll kick it out. Computers are a wonderful thing. Yes,
technology is amazing when it works, right?
Yeah,
when it messes up, it's a headache.
Right.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how is that DNA collected from potential suspects? Is there, how does it just randomly pop up in here? Is it because they've been booked somewhere and they take blood when you go to jail, or like what? How do you get the DNA?
Yeah, well, so laws have been changing. They have been for years now, but. If you're arrested, for a felony, convicted of a felony, then there's they obtain your DNA and it goes into the data bank.
Okay.
And if it's not in the data bank, then we get a search warrant. If we have probable cause, we get a search warrant for the buccal swab to obtain the DNA. It's painless. There's no needle involved. It's just a swab inside the mouth to obtain the DNA, much like you'd do if you were on Ancestry.com or 23andMe, and then we send it into the lab.
So I'm going to push my limits here and tell me if you can't answer. But through this case and things that you're looking at, do you think new what's the word I'm looking for? Warrants would be issued for DNA? Do you think you could get new DNA, or it's just...
Well, so I don't think a warrant's going to be needed. I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at this evidence that we have already in a different way, and utilize new methods to extract the DNA from the evidence, and then compare to the knowns that we have. And if we don't have the knowns, we're gonna go out and get that DNA sample from that person.
I honestly, we've known each other for a while now, but I love having you in this position because it just is really nice, one, to see somebody who's working for our community with so much passion that it makes me feel better knowing that you're a part of the team and that you're sitting here opening up these cases and looking through them with that passion. And so it's nice to see that. And I think it's so important for our community too. And I think that that's what I love about this segment so much is not only is there hope that we can close some of these cases and do whatever part I can, no matter how tiny it is, at least to give you guys the platform to share this, but also pull back the curtain a little bit and say, there's so many critics out there, right? And
Sure.
as law enforcement, you get it, right? You guys live it every day.
Yeah.
But it's nice to kind of pull back the curtain and say, no, even though you haven't heard it, there's work going on. And I just think that's really important to highlight too.
Yeah, and I think we're optimistic on a lot of these cases.
Yeah.
We'll put the work in, and we're optimistic that something will come back on some of them, and we just keep plugging along that way.
I love it. I am going to bring this up. Let me see if I can change this really quick. Hold on. This is, again, kind of like the behind the scenes fun of the one-man band doing everything here. Hold on one sec. I think it's this. Yes. Okay, this takes me to this before we let you go. If you have a case, send us a message. Detective, you've been so great about saying, no, I really want to highlight this one, Lieutenant Miller as well. But if you have a case in Michiana that you want to see highlighted on this segment, please let us know. A lot of them we know about, and the ones that are important to you, we don't. So let us know which ones. But I'm just, keep us posted on this. My thoughts and prayers, of course, are going out to Delia and her family. I just, again, with so many kids growing up still, it never closes. It never ends. You want answers. You're just living in limbo until someone tells you, hey, this is what we know. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for letting me kind of hijack your day and your schedule. And it's so important to hear from you about what you're seeing and what you're learning and how we can help. So thank you so much. I'll let you get back to your day. And again, if you guys have any information, Michiana Crime Stoppers, or you can just go straight to South Bend PD. This piece that aired this morning on Delia is also going to be airing tonight at 4. So please share it. Go on social media. As always, you can follow us right here on Facebook Live if you're joining us there. You can also head to our website, WNDU.com, click the watch live button, and just the live stream right there. You can watch that too. So, Craig, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you on the next case.
Thank you for having me.